Hello everyone and welcome to the 4th episode of my Super Woden GP2 lab testing series, where I drive every car in Super Woden GP2 so you don't have to. Today we will focus on the F class containing every vehicle between 301 and 400 horsepower. Before we start, I want to mention that a new car was recently added in the G class. Unfortunately, I had already finished the G class video by that point. The new car is the Raven Harry Rally, which came 4th in the class. Also, since I can't put external links in the description, I put the link to the result spreadsheet in the comments. With all that being said, let's go back to the testing. And we are starting with the Raven Sukera in 49th place with a 126.2. This is a very slow vehicle for the F class. It's kind of a meme vehicle. It's one of these scenery vehicles that you see that the dev made available to buy. It's not really worth using. Next, in 48th place, we have the Nanwolf Crusader with a 1 minute 5.474. This, unfortunately, is a very slow car. It lacks engine upgrades and the handling is absolutely terrible. It's kind of fun to drive once you add the upgrades, but it's still very slow, unfortunately. After that, in 47th place, we have the Alia Rocky, which gets a 105.1. This car is also pretty bad in terms of grip, and its lack of horsepower doesn't help at all. It's basically just like the Nanwolf Crusader. Then 1 second faster with the Cinder 910 in 46th place. This car suffers from the same issues as the two previous cars, unfortunately. I didn't recommend it for the G class, and I don't recommend it either for the F class. Next, in 45th place, we have the Soup Auburn, another second ahead. This car is very heavy and you're not gonna be very quick with this. It's very difficult to drive, so I wouldn't recommend it. Next, in 44th place, we have the Soup Guayaquil, which doesn't have grip either. It gets a 102.742, but yeah, it's like every production car here in this class is gonna be basically useless because all the races that you'll have to do are requiring rally or race cars. So basically the entire start of this list is completely useless. But next, in 43rd place, we have the Soup Flippet F3, which gets a 1 minute 2 seconds and 81 milliseconds. And this car is one of the best muscle cars, I would say, for the muscle car weekend, if you exclude the two race cars that you can pick for that. Next, we have our first race car, a very disappointing race car. In 42nd place, we have the Cinder Schöne race car with a 101.208. You would expect a much better time from a race car that has 360 horsepower. Next, in 41st place, the Alia Paradis, which gets a 1 minute flat and 737 milliseconds, is a car that has a very bad handling without upgrades, but it has 2 tires upgrade that make it a bit better. In 40th place, we have the Soup Roca Z, which was already a pretty good car in the G class. Here it's gonna be basically useless, but it still gets a 1 minute flat and 500 milliseconds. It's good, it has good grip, but it's not good enough for the F class, for anything that you can do in the F class. And next, our first rally car, the Raven 892, which is the worst rally car of this class. It only has 313 horsepower, it gets a 1 minute flat and 65 milliseconds, and yeah, not surprising to see it that low, because in the G class it was already doing pretty bad. Next, our first sub 1 minute with the Cinder Stieglitz, which gets a 59 seconds and 810 milliseconds. This car is pretty good for a production car, especially since it's still at the bottom of the class with 319 horsepower only. This is a very good car overall, but unfortunately you can't do anything with it. Keep it in the G class, I would say. Next, we have the Cinder Kramer, and this one you can actually give it a lot of horsepower, 390 fully upgraded. In 37th place, this car gets a 57 seconds and 986 milliseconds. This is pretty grippy, unfortunately it's a bit stiff. And now in 36th place, the final production car that we're gonna see in here. After that, no more production car, the Alia April. 57 seconds and 375 milliseconds. This is the best production car of the class, but apart from that, it's still not fast enough to compete against race cars. Next, in 35th place, we have the Raven Shukufuku Rally, which is at the bottom of the class with 304 horsepower only. It's still better than the Raven 892, but you're not gonna do much with it. After that, the Soup Square in 34th place. This car was actually buffed at some point because it had very low horsepower. Now it stands fully upgraded at 376. It has a good top speed, but it's a bit heavy. Next, in 33rd place, we have the Soup Charlotte Rally, which also has been buffed, just like the Square. This car has 373 horsepower once upgraded, but it's still not great, just like the Square. It's barely faster, and it's still one of the slowest rally cars of this class, so I don't recommend it. Next, in 32nd place, we have the G-Class King, the Milan Pio, which only reaches 323 horsepower in the F-Class. It gets a 56 second and 312 milliseconds. In the F-Class, it's not gonna be very useful. I mean, you can do the rallies, it's fast enough to complete it, but it's not world record contender. Next, in 31st place, we have the Cinder Brozak concept, which is, well, actually, it's the production car, so I was lying when I said the early April was the fastest, apparently. But yeah, the Cinder Brozak concept 56.2, this is a pretty good car. It was surprisingly good, to be honest, but it's still a brick, unfortunately. It's very stiff. Next, in 30th place, we have the Milan vs Lotto, which gets a 56.1, and this car lacks of grip, that's for sure. It should have tires upgrade, I think, but without the tires upgrade it can't do anything. It's very bad in terms of handling. Next, in 29th place, we have the Milan Tattoo, which I had to retest actually because I forgot to put some of the upgrades when I tested it back when I was testing it the first time. This car gets 56 flat, and it's actually not too bad for 349 horsepower. If it had one more engine upgrade, it could probably be competitive with the top of the class, like maybe 54.5 seconds or something like that, but it's not the case, unfortunately. After that, we have the De Castro Zabibi 2 Rally, which is the last De Castro of the series. It gets a 55.882, and it's mainly held back by its low top speed compared to the other cars of the class in general. Still a decent car. Next, in 27th place, another car that is held back by its top speed, the Vitale 730, which gets a 55.5. This car has only one engine upgrade, one gearbox upgrade, and one suspension upgrade. It doesn't have any tire upgrades, unfortunately. That would be pretty useful if it had one. Next, we have the Alia SX4, which again, pretty good car, but unfortunately held back by its top speed, 55.2. This is not too bad, but the top speed holds it back so much. After that, in 25th place, we have the Cinder Audi Rally, and this time this version of the Audi is actually good, as opposed to the production car version. It only has 346 horsepower, but it is surprisingly quick for that amount of horsepower, 55.1. This is not too bad, honestly. After that, in 24th place, we have the Nanworth Genesis, which gets a 54.9. This is a very balanced car. It doesn't have any useful upgrade, unfortunately, but it is still a decent pick. After that, big gap, in 23rd place, the Nanworth Dalton race car gets a 54.072. This is a very stiff car, unfortunately, and its only advantage on the Super High is the top speed, so I would recommend always the Super High race car over the Dalton race car. After that, in 22nd place, we have the Milan Baxter Group B, which gets a 53 seconds .849. It is a pretty good car. It's very good, I'd say. It's balanced. It's a bit stiff maybe, but I don't know. I think it's a pretty good car. After that, in 21st place, we have the Enerning 444T Group A, which gets a 53 seconds and 724 milliseconds. This is an average race car, it's like mid-pack. It's not bad, but it's not good either. After that, in 20th place and in second place of the rally cars, the Super Rogers, which you get from the Super DTC Championship. This car gets a 53.708. This is a very good rally car. It's very light, it's very grippy. It's overall a pretty good car for rallying, and I think most people would do the 400 rally series with this car, and it's a good idea to do it with this car. But ultimately, the best rally car for this class sits in 19th place with the Milan Kuro WRC, which gets a 53.494. It's a very powerful car. I think its straight line speed is what makes it better than the Rogers. In terms of handling, they are probably very similar in my opinion. After that, in 18th place, we have the Super Annihilator RS, which is surprisingly eligible for the Muscle Car Weekend and is actually one of the best cars for that event with a 53.095. This is a pretty fun car to drive. With the 3 tire upgrades, it gets pretty fun to drive, even more fun to drive than stock. Stock, it lacks a bit of grip. Next, in 17th place, the Cinder Fisher DTC, which is the prize car for the BTC Championship, and this is the worst DTC car. This car is very bad. I actually, in my first playthrough, I tried to use this car for the DTC Championship and I struggled a lot. I ended up using another one. Next, in 16th place, the Cinder Super High race car. You can see that it's much faster than the Dalton. Over a second ahead. I really recommend to use the Super High for the Super High vs Dalton event, because yeah, the Super High is just much faster. Next, in 15th place, let's go back to DTC cars with the 910. This car is not great. It needs an engine and a tire upgrade to be there. It's unfortunately very bad in terms of handling. I really do not recommend it either. You get it from one of the endurance races, but I really do not recommend to use it. After that, in 14th place, we have the Cinder Shark BTC, which gets a 52.787. I don't recommend this car. This is the absolute slowest BTC car by far. So really use another car for the BTC Championship. Next, in 13th place, we have the Nanwolf Laser TRC, which gets a 52.763, and unfortunately, it's not very useful. It's not eligible for any of the mandatory championships like the BTC, DTC, and JTC. You can maybe do the 400 race car event that I don't remember the name of, but it's not very useful. Next, in 12th place, the Super Mamba 52.501. This is the actual best car for the Muscle Car Weekend. This car is surprisingly quick. It has a very good straight line. It lacks the grip though, but it has 3 tires upgrades, so be sure to apply those. Next, we have the Soup Square DTC, which turns well but lacks the grip and power. The Soup Square DTC gets a 52.210 and it is just mid-pack for DTC. There are better picks out there. Speaking of, here is in 10th place the Fulgore. So for the F class, the Fulgore DTC is not the best, but it's the only DTC car that you can upgrade up to the D class. So you can give it 550 horsepower, and here it becomes the best DTC car. But unfortunately you can't buy it, you have to gain it from an event. The 500s race cars challenge to be precise. After that, in 9th place, the Alia Morelli DTC, which gets a 51.8, and that's a pretty interesting car for the DTC championship, I would say. It handles pretty well. Its only downside is that it lacks of upgrades. It would be very nice to have tire upgrades for it, or even engine upgrades, why not? But unfortunately it doesn't have any. Next, in 8th place, we have the Unearning Ingwe BTC, which gets a 51.244. This has an engine upgrade, but it puts it outside of the F class. So inside of the F class, this car is only in 8th, but inside of the BTC championship, it's actually 2nd with the engine upgrade. But yeah, it's a decent car, a bit stiff, but overall decent car. Next, in 7th place, we have the Raven Kasasagi BTC, which gets a 51.2 and only 100 ahead of the Ingwe. This one turns well, but it lacks the grip, unfortunately. Some tire upgrades would make it probably close to the top, but it doesn't have any of those. Next, in 6th place, the best DTC car that you can actually buy, the Cinder Colibri DTC, a 51 flat. This car is actually pretty good, though I have to warn you that it has, if you play with the damages on, it has a very low health, so you can break it pretty easily, but it's still overall a pretty decent car. Next, in 5th place, we have the Raven Unua BTC, which gets a 50.977, and this car is mainly held back by its engine power. It only has 373 horsepower, which compared to the 4 cars that are ahead of it is pretty bad. It's mainly held back by its straight line speed. After that, in 4th place, we have the Cinder Kramer BTC, which gets barely ahead by 800th. This lacks a bit of grip, but it has the engine power, so that's what puts it ahead of the Unua. But after that, in 3rd place, 4/10 quicker, we have the Cinder Wagner BTC, which is kinda carried by its tire upgrade, I would say. It's a very balanced car, one of the most balanced cars of the BTC class, at least before the DLC cars were added. It is a very good pick, and most people would be satisfied with it. Next, in 2nd place, we have the Milan Audacia BTC, which has been the king for a very long time. It gets a 50 seconds .222, and it's pretty stiff, but it has a lot of power and a lot of grip. It lacks upgrades though, it only has 1 brakes upgrade, but I think it's for the best, because for so long it has been dominant without any of these upgrades, so it doesn't really need it. However, recently was added a new car, which claimed 1st place in the BTC and in the F class, the Milan Borgia BTC, which is basically just like the Audacia BTC, except that this one has 2 tires upgrades and 3 suspension upgrades, which make it much better in terms of handling. And this car gets a 48.730, it's a second and a half quicker than any other BTC car. And this car also has engine upgrades, so inside of the BTC Championship, this car is just dominant. This is like the Fulgore in the DTC Championship, but even more OP. So that's it for today. I hope this video has been useful to you. If it was the case, don't forget to subscribe and like the video. It's still so unfortunate that every class so far has been dominated by one specific car, even though there was some close fights right behind that. But that's how it is, I guess. Anyway, a quick reminder that the spreadsheet is in the description, or I mean in the comments, because in the description the link is broken, unfortunately. And also don't forget to check out my Twitch channel where I stream regularly, and as I'm recording this, I just became Twitch affiliate, so now you can have channel points. Yay! Incredible. You can't do anything with them, but you can have them. But yeah, until next time, take care and see ya!